I know I have talked a lot about my time in WWE over the last month in the show and a lot this week. Uh, certainly saw more than a few headlines about me talking about my release from WWE. Yesterday, a couple days ago, we talked about Fauci, Dr. Fauci, being that close to being a guest on the bump. Talked about my coverage of the Super Bowl on behalf of WWE in 2020. You guys seem to like these stories. Sometimes my memory gets jogged. As I was telling that Super Bowl story yesterday, go back and watch it. I explained why John Cena got up in the morning for Southpaw Regional Wrestling. Go back and watch that. It's in the archives. It is on our YouTube page at thewrestlingmatchshow.com. It's a fun story, and that week was quite an interesting experience for me in Miami, covering the company, covering the Super Bowl on behalf of the WWE, days after I had been in Houston, and a lot of creative changes happened during the week that I had to adjust to before going to the Super Bowl, and then the firing of the number two and three people in the company at the time. That's all there from yesterday's episode. So let's tell another one of these, because it's usually stuff specifically from my perspective and stuff I went through directly that had to do with me. But I've had some people ask about what was the reaction to this within the company? What was the reaction to this within the company? So here was one I thought of because I had multiple dealings with this person. I'm talking about Adam Cole. If we put it in post, it would say it there. So I knew Adam before he signed with WWE. I knew Adam going back to Ring of Honor days. I had done, it's out there somewhere. It was supposed to be on Bleacher Report. They changed their mind. I had written this article for, I think it ended up on the Sportster. Oof. The content's good. The layout's dog shit, but that's what they did. So I wrote this article, and the idea of the article was that WWE was no longer the goal for everyone anymore. There were other things you can do within wrestling to make a very good living. And this is when New Japan was getting hot, and Ring of Honor had Bullet Club, and the Young Bucks are, selling out a bunch of T-shirts, and Pro Wrestling Tees blew up. So I wanted to really get the perspective, and at the time, Ring of Honor had a very, very strong roster. And those people would go get signed by everybody else. But I mean, absolutely, they had the Briscoes, they had the Bucks, they had Cole, they had AJ, they had Daniels and Kazarian and Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole. I mean, they were loaded. And I'm missing some, believe me. Loaded roster. 2015. You know what? As I think about it now, because the article came out, I did the interviews at Final Battle 2015 and AJ debuts at the 2016 Rumble. And that was somewhat of an not open secret, but an expectation at the time that AJ could show up in the Rumble. So I did this article, and I interviewed, you heard those names. Those are names that had popped up, went through the indies, that had made names for themselves on Ring of Honor and New Japan. So I interviewed the Bucks. I interviewed Kyle O'Reilly. I interviewed Adam Cole. I interviewed Frankie Kazarian. I interviewed Christopher Daniels. I think there's a couple more in there. We'll get the article up on our social media. But that's the first time I met Adam Cole. And I think everybody knows, there he is. Wonderful head of hair, which I always told him. He used to have fun with that when he came on the bump. But there is Adam Cole. That was the first time I met Adam Cole. Always a big fan of him. And I can say this because I think enough people know, because they've watched his chug streams doing video games. One of the nicest human beings. You're not going to hear much bad about Adam Cole ever. A great, you hear me say the phrase great dude. He is in the great dude category. that's a guy I am happy to have crossed paths with as a human being, in addition to being a coworker. So I remember interviewing Adam during that time, and obviously he would move on to WWE and Undisputed Era, and we'll get to what I want to talk about, which is the reaction within WWE when he showed up in AEW. But just to give the backstory on how I knew Adam, that was the first time. He didn't know of me. I had done... That's even me before doing Busted Open. So I probably even that's even before I had done House of Hardcore with Dreamer. Right around that time, maybe I was about to start there. And I interviewed him, and he was as nice as could be. And he wasn't, he was on his way, but he wasn't doing major media. So more than willing, I had a very good rapport with people that I could kind of walk freely backstage into a place like that, and I did. Final Battle 2015. I believe that's AJ and Cole. You got to look that up. It's a hell of a show. And AJ's coming up on wrestling Shinsuke at Wrestle Kingdom like the next month. I think his back was an issue, and I think that was kind of known. And there was the thought he could show up in WWE. So I talked to AJ and Cole and Kyle and the Bucks and Kazarian and Christopher Daniels. I'm probably missing somebody in there. But I got a nice mix of those who didn't have that WWE run yet or weren't going to have it, but had made a career for a long time outside of WWE and now had gotten to the point where they were doing very well for themselves, not doing that WWE run. And Pro Wrestling Tees was a big part of that. And New Japan was a big part of that. And working for multiple companies. And PWG, obviously, which so many great talents from, all the big companies right now had gone through it some way. Most of them had gone through it. But that was the first time I talked to Cole. And he was as nice as can be. He's from Pennsylvania and from a very quiet area of Pennsylvania, and he's, great family and all that. And just talking about it, like, hey, do you, with the success you're having, still need that WWE moment, that WrestleMania moment? And he said, how could you not? He was honest about it. There's companies that look at themselves and put themselves on too much of a pedestal. And some companies that, no, listen, we're not the top of the heap. We're not. We know we're not WWE. We know we are an avenue for full-time gigs, an avenue to stop off, an avenue to maybe come back to. But, I think Scott D'Amore was pretty good about that, telling some people, hey, listen, we know what that would mean to you. I know that was part of contract talks. That's a good way to do it. That's knowing your place in the industry. And Cole was honest. How could I not want that moment? That's what I grew up watching. And that, I put that article up, and it was just a conversation with these talents about life outside of WWE. So obviously AJ ended up there, a month later, and Cole got there, and Kyle got there. And, the Bucks, we know what they've done, New Japan, Ring of Honor, AEW. Now they're EVPs. All those guys. Daniels went from, active in-ring to being active as a coach and now as an on-screen talent and talent relations. Frank Kazarian ended up in AEW. He was the first tag team champion. Now he's back in a prominent role in TNA. Showed up in WWE for the first time since his Velocity days at NXT a couple of weeks ago. It was nice to get that perspective. It wasn't a knock on WWE. It was just more of, hey, look, the wrestling industry is in a great position. And hell, it's even in better position now with AEW being able to financially be competitive. If you just go by that alone, that's one of the best things that's happened with AEW. A financially competitive additional company to WWE. That's great for the business. For fans, there's wrestling everywhere. There's wrestling on all the time in a million different places. And I remember asking Christopher Daniels about that. And he said, listen, and he wasn't the first to use this analogy, and he won't be the last. There's a flavor of ice cream from everybody out there, and there's somewhere to watch it. And whether that was WWE Network, streaming services like IWTV or High Spots or Obviously, New Japan World, and there's so many more now. And YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, and there's ways to get your stuff out there, and there's ways to see everything. And good companies embrace that, and they were at the time. And he said, listen, you can go watch whatever you want. It's a hell of a time to be a fan. And that was 8-9 years ago. It still is. You have major wrestling promotions. The top 2 companies in the world are on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. And 2 weekends out of the month, you're getting a pay-per-view or a PLE or whatever you want to call it. And that's just the top 2 companies. And then you have New Japan, you have Stardom, and you have TNA. You have New Japan doing a better job here in America. You have indies, Deadlock or Beyond or whatever it may be that are running, AEW. And they're getting the names. And you're getting some TV names from AEW to pop up on indies, which I always enjoy. It's great to see that. First Wrestling's running Mall of America again. I think this is the 4th year, 3rd or 4th year. That's coming up in September. That looks cool. Thunder Rosa has her promotion in Texas. And I know that's just a handful of them. There's so much wrestling out there to take in. Kaiju Big Battle. They're going to Japan. I'm thrilled for them. My daughter's 5 years old. She's been watching things a little bit more. I'm careful what she sees and explains things. Kaiju Big Battle's running in Brooklyn in August. It's an all-ages kids show. We're going to try to go to that. You can find something now for everybody. And listen, we're still going to be critical. We're still going to say what we like and don't like and how we do things better or whatever it may be. But it's nice to be able to have a show like this where there's never a lack of things to talk about. Bringing it back on course. Adam Cole would pop up in WWE, obviously, and got over big in Undisputed Era. And I got to interview him. There you go. I just realized it. He's on Bump Episode 1. As the NXT champion, he was on Bump Episode 1. Calling in from the aisle. They set him up, and he was in the aisle at Full Sail, so the ring was behind him. And he was on the show. Seth Rollins was Universal Champion. He was on the show in studio. He was getting ready to face The Fiend at Hell in a Cell. And one of the top executives at Digital, who's not there anymore, but was the person who hired me and the person who basically told me, hey, we're going to push the envelope. We know we're playing to not the internet crowd. There's the picture. Hell, great job, Dom. There it is. And look what's over Seth's shoulder, by the way, because we had the original NXT title in there, the men's one. The idea of this right here was to play to the fact that Seth Rollins, an indie guy who made it, Shield and all that stuff, and Adam Cole, a big indie guy, also went through Ring of Honor, made it. They hadn't interacted. That hadn't been a thing. We were trying to play to that from the jump. We know where their fan bases came from, or at least were initially established, and WWE makes it bigger and bigger and bigger. What a cool interaction that was. That would be. And that's what we set up on that first episode. And Cole, this is what happens. I start to talk about something else, and I think of a different story. Adam Cole was wrestling Matt Riddle because it was happening that night at NXT. This was, as I think I said yesterday or sometime this week, the first episode of The Bump on October of 2019 was the same day as the first Dynamite. NXT got the jump on AEW by a week. So their second Wednesday night episode was airing also at the same time. So Cole comes on that episode, and he was Undisputed Era, heel Cole, but he's such a nice guy. But those two, Seth is a babyface, Cole's a heel. Cole was wrestling Matt Riddle, and he had the brace on his hand. He had hurt his wrist for a while. And when Seth heard he was wrestling Riddle, he just destroyed. Like, he went Oh, I hope you beat him. Which didn't play along because Riddle was a babyface and Seth was He's like, no, I hope you beat that guy. Screw that guy. I hate that guy. And that heat was legit. That heat was legit for a very long time. And when they had their feud and all that stuff, Seth had to forgive a few things for that to work. But it was I remember in the moment going, oh, okay, this is what this show is. They're going to take advantage of a live mic, or the smart ones will, and they can say that kind of stuff, which was great. So that was kind of my first interaction with Cole in WWE. And then that night, everybody on the bump, as soon as that episode ended, there was a airport runner waiting for us outside. And we went right to the airport, and we flew down to Orlando and went right to Full Sail. And we did a watch-along of that first NXT episode, or second NXT episode. And it was all the bump people, almost all, I think. And then we just had different NXT talent come in and sit with us. Like Omos is on that. It's before he even debuts. He's on that. Norman Smiley's on that. I want to say, oh boy, Steve Carino's on that. Bianca's on that. Montez is on that. Stokely's on that, sitting next to me. Mason Mansoor on that. Duke Hudson's on that. Oh, I think Boogs is on that. Chris Hero's on that. It was actually Hero and I had never talked to either, and we hit it off because we're both wrestling nerds. And I remember Cole won because he used the brace. And obviously Cole was a star in NXT and would be doing more and more. And everybody liked him. You're not going to hear a bad word about Adam Cole. I said that already, but that's just how he was. And he was such a good guy with his time. Made himself available, would do things for digital, would do things, specials, whatever, and the company went with it. And remember, Black and Gold NXT, there was a big separation between that and Raw and SmackDown. Hunter running Black and Gold, Vince running the main roster. And the question was always, can Adam Cole, what would that look like if he got the call up? Not the biggest guy, charismatic as hell, over as hell, great talker, great promo. And the most important thing to me, because I thought long-term with Adam Cole, a great ambassador and representative of the company. You would never worry about that guy. Played his role well as a heel, played his role well as a babyface, but a reliable person who didn't get in trouble, who worked his butt off, who worked through injuries, you name it. And he did. He worked through some stuff people don't even realize he worked through during his time in WWE, especially during the pandemic. That's up for him to tell that story one day. That dude worked and carried himself as you should. And I remember pandemic, we were doing the watch-along show, and we couldn't go to the arenas anymore because we would do the watch-alongs, and they started before I was there. People would come into whoever it was, maybe Kayla, and I think Ryan did them. McAfee was on those when he took the kendo stick to the back that one time. They just set up in a room at the arena, and talent would come in and out and watch the show. Second screen experience. TV hated that one, by the way. Hated that show. Hated that show. I guarantee you won't see that in AEW. There will be no watch long in AEW. Guarantee that. You can figure that one out. But then when we couldn't go to the arenas anymore because of the pandemic, we did Zoom watch-alongs. So I was, it sounded like a beach house somewhere because I was, this is how I was, vacation, but I got to do watch-alongs, so I will. I think I was on a similar setup like this in a room somewhere, found a hardwired internet, and I did the Horror Show at Extreme Rules watch-along. And we would book talent that wasn't on the card or NXT talent to come on with us. So we booked Adam and Ricochet, and I believe they were on for the Jeff Hardy Sheamus match. I think that's right. And Adam was a heel at the time, but he came on and played it pretty neutral as a wrestling analyst almost. And he was so good in that role. And it was the first time he had done a watch-along that I remember. He was so good at just being a wrestling fan. Like, it wasn't heel Adam Cole in the Disputed Era. It was Chugs, if you will. It was the dude who loved wrestling, who grew up loving wrestling, and who could bring his perspective of being in the ring, but he kind of took the heel part out of it, which worked on those shows. They were very blurred lines. We would never put people on the show that were feuding or anything like that. Not intentionally, at least. Sometimes that would happen, but Cole was on there, and he was so good. And I remember I messaged him as soon as it was over, and I said, dude, you could do this you should work here for 20 years. I said, we could put you at the commentary desk. They could use you in a million spots when you're done wrestling, when you are. And he was very appreciative. It's almost like he didn't know. And I guess it was kind of a newer thing. You're not doing that kind of stuff pre-WWE. And he was so good at it. And we had him on the In Your House Bump episode. Same episode I believe Todd was on the first time. And he, talked about his fandom, admitted he hadn't seen In Your House 1 because he's too young. Like, he didn't remember it really. Like, he didn't see it when it happened, which was like, oh, cool, I'm a bit older than Adam Cole. But that's how he was. And then I think, as everybody knows, he ended up in the pandemic. One of the most popular things, and a very organic thing, was the party. Woods, Breeze, Swiss, Cesaro, whatever you want to call him, Claudio, and Adam, Chugs. And the party became a very organically fun thing. And while Breeze and Woods, Creed, whatever, were buddies before that, and Swiss, they didn't know Cole as well. There was some, connections, and they've told the story, and then it just, Cole, 4 guys who love to stream and play video games. That was the connection. This was not the 80s of closing down bars and illicit drug use, and that's how the camaraderie came from stuff like this. And during the pandemic, they kind of just brought this together, and this is what happened. And people loved it, and it was fun, and they had fun. It was the essence to me of Up, Up, Down, Down. This is not about wrestling, but we have a lot of great personalities. If people can see these personalities a little bit, maybe they get a little more attached to them, leading you to seeing what they're doing on Monday nights, on Tuesday nights, on Friday nights. That's what Creed always wanted. And he loved to feature people that weren't on TV. And the smart ones would take advantage of that. But in the pandemic, that's who it was. It was those 4 guys, and they created this great following. And it got more popular and more popular. And I'm just thinking about something that I have right around here, if I can find it, because it showed. Aha, I got it. They got so popular playing Uno that this right here got created. Think about that. 4 guys who put together a random streaming group that just happened to go up, 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 down, down, played Uno to the point that it got popular enough that Uno put out a card deck just for the party. They didn't make that many of them. I think I bought one and then I found out I got a freebie or something like that, but they got their own. That's unbelievable. And it shows you the power of what can happen when you just find something that people connected to, and people liked it because it was kind of just a nice, safe, fun place. And it was just people having fun, and it was people with their guard down, and it wasn't about wrestling storylines. And those 4 guys, and they played other games, things like that. And this came out right around the time Adam Cole's contract was coming up. And I don't know the details of his contract, but I think a lot of people remember of the rumors at the time. And I'm asking him, like, is he staying? And I'm trying to come up with scenarios where he would stay. And the two big things that were, well, three big things. One, Britt was in AEW. Two, the Twitch deal. He loved to be on Twitch. They famously caught that out and Cameo out and all that stuff and couldn't do it anymore. Adam did well with that. I know he made money with that, but he just liked to do it. And you just weren't allowed to. And three was that Keith Lee manager role, whatever. I know for a fact that Cole had gone to a television and he met with Vince. Like, that happened. I think the manager thing happened there. They may have had multiple meetings, but the indications were, I don't know if Vince saw it in Cole. And maybe most importantly, I don't know. This is for Adam to tell one day. They weren't going back on the Twitch thing. And maybe Adam was always going to AEW because Britt was there. And he would have that freedom. And he would have new challenges. And he wouldn't have to get booked by Vince. And it just, let's see what happens. And I talked to people that were connected to him at Up, Up, Down, Down. I talked to people just not sure. And I remember watching that AEW pay-per-view, and he came out. And I say this not as, at the time, an employee of WWE. I say this as someone who liked the guy, wanted to work more with the guy. I was bummed when I watched him walk out at AEW. I was thrilled for him, but selfishly, I was bummed he was gone. I really liked working with Adam Cole. I had started to think about, maybe I had done a little commentary at the time, whatever it may be, but I was like, man, I'd love to do more stuff with Adam. Dan Riker had talked about how they had shot that Attitude Era podcast idea with him and Gargano, and Dakota and Stokely were on it, and, that kind of stuff worked. And Up, Up, Down, Down. And that had the party really started to really take off. Like, they played that, whatever that game is where you bounce the ball on the trampoline. Like, they played that in the parks. Like, that's where it had gotten to. And he was gone. He went to AEW. And he was with, Kenny and them. And then Danielson walked out. And I went, oh, boy. Which that was expected. I think that was expected, but not at the same time. And then went bang, bang. And it's one of the best moments in AEW history. It's one of the best 5-minute, just unbelievable. And Cole got great music, and Ruckus gets credit for that. Man, that, as soon as I saw that AC pop up, I went, God damn it, they got him. And I couldn't tell you who I said that about. I think I just knew he could have been a big deal, and it was ridiculous to see him get away. That shouldn't have happened. Now, if you want to say that he was always going to go to AEW to be with, because he wanted to be with Britt and he had friends there, and then maybe there was no chance. But if there was a chance and it didn't happen because he couldn't do Twitch, or he was going to be put in a managerial role, whether it be with Keith Lee or anybody else, that's such a fumble. Such a fumble. Shouldn't have happened. If those were the two things, if those things could, if he gets to be in the ring and be what he was in NXT and be Adam Cole, the worker, the great wrestler, the great promo, over as hell, and he got to do Twitch, if you had to just do those two things and he would have stayed, then I don't know. That's his decision. But if it came down to those two things, Twitch and being in the ring are different things, but he obviously had an option. If he would have stayed, had he gotten a guarantee he would stay in the ring and that he could do his Twitch, if that's what it would have taken and they didn't give it to him, that is talent relations dropping the ball in the biggest way. And that might be just Vince, honestly. That might be Vince or KD, because I know he had his hands in Twitch stuff and what was allowed and not allowed, and money, how are we getting paid for it? And obviously Twitch has come back. It doesn't seem to matter as much, but those that do it are enjoying it, by the way, and it affected nothing. But when Adam Cole left, I was bummed personally, and there was, at least from the digital side, it was disappointment. Listen, I think anybody who knew him personally was happy for him, but it was disappointment he wasn't going to be around anymore. That's how well liked he was. To me, and I think others thought this, he was the one that got away. If it's a few years later and it's Hunter in control, I'm not going to say it definitely wouldn't have happened, but there would have been a far better chance he remained in WWE if Hunter was in control. But people were bummed about that. Nobody was upset at him. They got it. I think there were people that were definitely disappointed within the company of what he was offered or wasn't allowed to do. Those being sticking points. I know people found that ridiculous. And I think that also comes back to however Vince perceived him. But I'm happy Adam is where he is now. I have talked to him multiple times. He was one of the few people I remember messaging when they left. And, Adam's ego never grew with his push. Adam was the same guy at the top of NXT that he was when I interviewed him in Ring of Honor. There is a humbleness to him. Once again, just watch his Twitch streams. That's the guy. And keeping those things separate from wrestling. Almost to the point, because I know him like that the devil stuff, and forget the creative and how that was perceived, that I almost went, it's Adam Cole. I can't boo him. But I'm happy he's out where he's at now. I hope his recovery is going better. Last time we saw him, MJF came back and kind of put that story to bed. What an unfortunate injury for him, and obviously the concussions that he dealt with. And I hope he's on the way back. He is missed sorely, and I'm happy he's in AEW and he gets to be, with Britt, and he gets to be around his friends, and he gets to do his thing. And if you pay attention sometimes, you see the party pop up doing their own thing from time to time. So, yeah, Adam Cole was missed by talent relations and Vince. That was a big miss. Real quick here, Yakut says, I missed the last decade of wrestling. What's the best Adam Cole match to watch? Chat, please chime in on this yourself. Him and Ricochet. If I just think of WWE, him and Danielson, Daniel Bryan, whatever. You know who I'm talking about. The SmackDown in 2019 when everybody gets stuck in Saudi. They do Bryan and Cole in the main event. It's friggin' great. There's stuff with Gargano, obviously. There's a couple of those. I know I'm missing some. You caught me off guard there on that. But the Ricochet match is special. That's a really good one. Go back and find your Adam Cole stuff. I'm just going from WWE. I'm blanking on AEW stuff. The 4-way where he got concussed, unfortunately, I think last year at Forbidden Door, right? It's like Okada, Hangman, Jay, and Cole. That's a damn good match for a 4-way. And I'm sure I'm missing others. Him and MJF, yeah. Yes, the Ricochet one is the moonsault into the super pick. What a beautiful. Oh, is that good? Oh, is that good? There's also a house show that they taped with Drew and Cole, and Shawn is the ref, and Cole super kicks him, and Shawn sells it like death, which is kind of cool to see Shawn Michaels take a super kick. That's more of a moment than anything else. But yeah. And we'll do more on Adam Cole. I'll tell you what, one of those topics I brought up at the beginning of the show that we're going to do, he's going to pop in one of those. I will tell you that. Let's talk about AEW now in full. And if you enjoyed that kind of story, there's plenty more of them right here, right above Todd at thewrestlingmatchshow.com. We got a whole month's worth of stuff up there so far. Our shorts cover a lot of that stuff. And our social media you can follow at WrestlingMat23. Post a lot about that as well. Go check that out. Go subscribe. Turn the notifications on. Plenty of these stories from my past, especially in WWE, I like to share. And like that one, I think that's a pretty nice story. And I think me saying what I said about the company dropping the ball is a mostly shared opinion. Hey, this is Matt Camp. Thanks for checking out one of our recent clips from the Wrestling Mat. Why is someone so close to The Rock kind of throwing Cody under the bus?
Yeah, a lot of people won't engage with Jim Cornette. I did, just because I have a mark for Jim Cornette.
Please subscribe right now. Hit the like and turn on notifications so you don't miss a thing. And I think you should listen to your TV partners. Let me tell you about WWE and a little insight. More subscribers means more content. And make sure you follow us on social media at WrestlingMat23 on both Twitter and Instagram.